Oh my gosh, we have some very excited gentlemen with me today because it's a resource day here at the Equity.Guru Investor Roundtable, and nobody likes some resources more than these fellers. That would be the happy fella in the far corner. That's Chris Perry, the guru himself, smiling, glee. He's gleeful. Galen downstairs here is making something in the basement as usual, sitting sort of in the dark, which is a little bit nerve-wracking. What would that be that you're making that would be in the dark?
Crack cocaine.
Oh, crack cocaine. And then straight upstairs is Vishal Vitura, who will give us charts. But before he gives us charts, we're going to talk about the company BBB on the venture exchange. It's Brixton Metals under Gary Thompson, who, by the way, are on the website today, Equity.Guru. You can hear the gauntlet with Chris Perry and read about them and all that other good stuff. But VV will tell us about BBB.
All right, Rob. So yeah, Brixton Metals is a junior explorer that basically focuses on gold, silver, and copper. Although you can see there is actually a cobalt portion or an asset here in Ontario. You can see that they do own 4 properties: Atlin, Thorn, which are both in BC, Hog Heaven, which is in Montana, and then Langus, which is in Ontario. And I would say that the focus right now appears to be the Thorn project and also the Hog Heaven project. Recent news is that Brixton received the second cash payment from Ivanhoe Electric, and I think this is actually quite important. Firstly, because joint ventures are great because you have now this company paying or giving money to Brixton to basically drill and find results. And Ivanhoe Electric is of course owned by Robert Friedland, who is quite a famous Canadian mining billionaire who ran Ivanhoe Mines, I believe, down in the Congo. And also, another big news is, oh, my mouse was frozen there for a bit, but it's actually Brixton Metals has raised $12 million in cash for the Thorn, copper gold project. So basically, they have the money to do drilling, which is great for catalysts, and the focus seems to be those 2 projects. And it's always great to see when a company has that cash because now they can actually get these drills going. We don't know really what's going to be in those holes, but essentially when you have big companies like this, allocating cash to the company, it's usually because they've done due diligence. And I think the great thing about this play is not just the assets are in great jurisdictions, they have the money, but there's also other big players that are backing the stock, including Eric Sprott himself. We've mentioned Ivanhoe Electric, and there's also Rob McEwen. So basically, Rob McEwen, Robert Friedland, and Eric Sprott are all basically backing this project, owning shares. And I think when you have those big names in mining backing up a stock, you should start paying attention.
Pretty good.
Yep.
And I would think that Chris Perry would concur with that.
Yeah. So I had a chat with Gary Thompson shortly before we did this video, and hit him with a few tough questions. One of them being, hey, you've got a ton of land. That's great and all, but you've got to figure out exactly where on that land you're going to spend your money. How are you going to do that? And he said, look, we've got a handful of really strong targets that we're going to dive into. We're going to try and be all things to all people. We've got the money to drill like crazy through 2022 without having to raise again. You've got all those, as you mentioned, big names that are hanging off the side of it and have invested into it, and in one case is partnering with it. And what's interesting to me, actually, I think less so to most, is the Thorn project, is that copper glut that they're sitting on. We know that copper is in short supply for the next 2-3 years. It's going to get worse, and we're going to need a whole ton more of it. This is a decent property with lots of copper showings. And you know that with Friedland attached and doing the development, it's not like that Brixton has to go out and raise money to progress that project along. It's going to get progressed by a friendly billionaire. So a $40 million market cap right now, which to me is cheap, They sure ain't on their bottom. They're not at their 52-week low. This is a company that's been around for a while. It's been building to this. It has a property, like it has actually several properties, but it has land to use. It doesn't need to use it all. It doesn't need to be the biggest damn thing around, but it's very clear, speaking to Gary Thompson, that people involved in this project believe that there is a lot of very productive land in their claim, and they're not in any hurry to get right to it tomorrow. They're just going to build and build and build. The catalyst for knowing whether or not this thing is taking off is the drill results. No word when they'll hit. They're going to land when they land. There's kind of a glut at the labs these days. So the old days of saying we expect drill results next week and suddenly everyone's buying the stock, that ain't happening anymore. But at a $40 million market cap, with the property they've got, the partners they've got that have already bought in at this price and have raised them a ton of money at this price, I think realistically, you might not have to buy it today. Maybe you don't have to buy it tomorrow, but it should be on your radar, whether you're a mining guy or not. Going into times of military, government, and economic uncertainty, gold is generally a place where we find a little bit of solace. And gold has not been rocketing up the charts lately. There's been a lot of other things that people have seen as opportunities: oil and gas, cobalt, nickel. But, gold is never present, man. There's never going to be a time when nobody wants to put a shiny thing on mama's finger.
Hey, Mr. Crack, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, as everyone else has mentioned, this company does have institutional support from some pretty big hitters in the mining industry. I mean, Sprott throwing his money around is a good indication that there's something there of interest, at least within this company. And if you take a closer look at the properties themselves, all of them have sport tremendous potential. They're not greenfield opportunities where they're going, yeah, we got a bunch of land. It's situated by a bunch of land. It might have something. No one's actually even drilled it. We did some sort of, helicopter or magnetic survey. We found some anomalies. We'll work on getting some targets together. No, these are all solid opportunities. I mean, if you take a look at the Thorn project, there's some great mining or drilling news that was just released in November, I believe, that showed, I think, 19.5 grams per ton gold over 11 meters. There's stuff that's already been intersected on this property. This isn't a thing where we're just going to grab some rocks and hope for the best. So the company itself has really got some brownfield opportunities, some very studious choices in terms of acquisitions. This would go towards the Atlan gold field that is operating on that project, as well as the copper silver project in Ontario, Langus or Langlois. I'm not pronouncing it correctly, I'm sure. But
the company, silver cobalt.
Silver cobalt. There we go.
Yeah.
All of these are great opportunities at the time. There are metals that we're very much interested in, will be very much interested in over the near future. And because of the switch towards green energy, these will become far more important. Cobalt, especially, silver, especially, both functional metals in that transition. And companies that position themselves with as they have done, 12 million in the bank as of December 31st, these guys can carry it through and pretty well operate on anything for the next year without, as we said, having to raise any more money. I like what I see. I see a company that's built a smart portfolio, has done the work necessary to prove that it's actually worthwhile to be there, and has enough cash to carry itself through to further delineate these deposits and grow these mineralizations that they're finding. So I got nothing but clapping for these guys.
On the BBB, well said, by the way, Galen. BBB on the Venture Exchange, what is it doing? What do we think it's going to do, Vishal?
It's looking really good. So before we look at BBB here, actually, quick just update on gold, because I know obviously what gold does will affect silver as well. But I think this whole run into commodities, there was this fear run, but I think, the inflation trade is technically still there. And we're recording this on the 17th of March, where just yesterday, the Federal Reserve came out saying they're going to hike interest rates likely 6 times this year. And generally, increasing interest rates is negative for gold because gold yields nothing. If bonds yields are going to move up, you'd rather be in bonds rather than gold. But take a look at how gold reacted. It actually closed, and this is the candle on the Fed day. It actually closed at the high of the day, green. So it's not really looking like the precious metal markets are pricing in 6 interest rate hikes. To me, it might be pricing in maybe still some more geopolitical uncertainty or runaway inflation still, right? So essentially, I think that is a good sign if you are a precious metals investor. I know precious metal investors were a bit fearful, me included, because I actually thought that there might have been a bit of a deflationary event with the Fed being very, aggressive with their rate hikes, but instead the opposite happened. So that's a good development if you're, bullish on the metals. And I think it's a good indicator that, other people are now paying attention to the metals market. And I think it's a good time to start picking up some positions. And, I've been saying that maybe for the last few months here. But Brixton itself, I really like the structure that we have here. I have a little tab here because I want to show you guys that cup and handle pattern. I always talk about it, but really I want you to just focus on that structure, which is this big sort of broad cup pattern. And then you have a bit of a handle here on the corner or on the side. Actually, this is probably the best looking sort of chart of a cup and handle. Essentially, you have your resistance line. You're going to get that breakout. You're going to get that retest, and then you go flying to the moon, as they call it. But if you look at BBB, very similar structure here. You have your cup right here. You have your handle, and all we need now is just that breakout above 22.5 cents, and then this stock will go flying. So I like the structure we have here. I'm very bullish as long as we stay basically above the handle portion, which is that 15-cent zone. So if we do, down the road, close below 15 cents, it does mean that this cup and handle pattern isn't necessarily triggered. But if, just the way gold's acting, the way the commodities are acting right now, I'm thinking it's highly likely sometime down the road, maybe even very soon, we get a close above 22.5 cents. And then from there, upwards and onwards. So Brixton is looking really, really good with a structure here as well.
All right.
Yep.
That means I got $7,500 for each person to utilize. Chris Perry, how will you utilize?
Well, I mean, as your financial advisor, I must at first ask you your risk profile and how long it is that before you're seeking a return. At 19 cents or so, I think it is right now.
Yep.
I think it's a sort of in the mid-range of where it's been this year. I don't see it particularly jumping hard or necessarily dropping hard. The news that could make it jump might come in a week, might come in a month, might come in 6 months. So if you're okay with a little bit of time watching your money sit and waiting for the day when it goes from 18 cents to 30 cents, then I'd say probably buying the dips, put a couple of thousand down now, keep a couple of thousand for if it drops down to 16, 15 over the next week or two. But keep adding because honestly, these guys, they believe they're building $1 billion company. They believe they are going to be a producing miner and that they're not going to require someone to come in and buy them for that to happen. They believe in the land. They believe in the partners. If you're going to build an actual good for goodness mining producer, these are the partners that you would have. So, if they have faith in where the company's going, I have faith in where the company's going because Hell's Bells, Rob McEwen's going to do a lot better DD than I do. So put your money in, lock it away, don't think about it, come back in 6 months, go, oh shit, what happened there? How come that's doubled?
So how much you dropping?
A couple of thousand, but we just keep watching. Yeah, if it drops under a certain point, gobble up some more.
All right, start with a couple grand, Galen. What about you?
Well, Vishal had mentioned something that's actually, I think, kind of interesting on a macro scale. I think precious metals are entering a new era in terms of how they react to market pressures, i.e. Inflationary measures done by the Fed. I think we've gone past the Fed's ability to a certain extent to dramatically affect the pricing of precious metals. The uncertainty of governmental structure, the uncertainty of fiat currency in and of itself. I think that now gold and silver are going to move beyond those control pressures, at least to the point where they're not really affected. You might see some pressure happen, but I think gold and silver are now just going to continue to raise in value, and will not be something that we have to worry about. Like, what is Jerome going to say this week in terms of how it's going to do to your gold pricing? So, if you want to get in for a growth opportunity, silver might be it as far as like getting into commodity in and of itself. Gold, not necessarily so much. I think it's just going to do its thing and just continue to climb. But Brixton really does present a growth opportunity of not just an exit, but as Chris mentioned, having an actual producer. So at one point, you're going to most likely get dividends and all sorts of neat things. This is something that would really build on your investment. And as Chris mentioned, they've got all these heavy hitters involved that don't get involved with the small guys for the most part, because they're waiting for gold to come out of the ground. So I think that this opportunity here, as it stands, as Chris mentioned, mid-range, I'd probably throw $3,000 in and see where we're at in about 6 months. That's where I'm at on this one.
Also, just quickly, I want to mention that although they have a big land holding, they're not going to need to peel back a mountainside to get at what they're going for. They're looking to go in a block cave mining, basically. So go in where you know the going's good, dig underground. You don't have to displace as much soil. It's not as devastating to the surroundings. It's not as expensive. And really, you can let the gold tell you where it is and just go chase it, rather than having to just drill and drill and drill and drill and drill. Other companies have used this kind of method recently, and I think it's a sign that the company is not just looking to do the same old, and looking to really get stuck in.
How much, Michelle, from you?
So tons of positives here. I think this might be one of the best junior plays here on the market. First of all, they're funded up for 2022. So you're going to have catalysts, you're going to have drill results, as Chris mentioned. There's not really going to be much financing. You have the big names, right? Your Robert Friedland with a joint venture. You have Rob McEwen, and you also have Eric Sprott. These guys have obviously done their due diligence. And, when you have three big names like that, all buying the stock, and there's also Crescent Capital as well, and a few other institutional names as well. That's a very positive sign. You add in also the fact that it looks like we have a technical pattern here, which generally means that there's a bottom here. It still hasn't triggered yet, but the structure is there. So you have a lot of positives on this stock. And the way I would play this is I would enter a position now. I would put around 3K right here at 18.5 cents, and then put the remainder of my money, or I'd say another 3K or 2K once we actually break above 22.5 cents. And you ride this. I think this is going to be a long-term hold. I do believe gold's going to be making much more higher prices down the road here. And I like the way gold's reacting to this. And I think miners are just in the beginning process of a nice bull market here. So 3K now, and then you add more on that actual break of 22.5 cents. But Brixton is, definitely one of the best right now out of all the juniors here, with all the things I just said.
Wow.
We should say also just quickly that they're not technically a client of ours. We're giving them free coverage because we like the deal. We like the story, and we think people should be into it. They're not going through a marketing phase. We're not making anything out of this. We're just pointing out that of a bunch of companies out there we've looked at, this is a really interesting company.
Very good. These gents love the resources. They love this resource. It's BBB on the venture exchange. It's Brixton Metals under Gary Thompson. And again, you can read and see more about it around the Equity.Guru as we speak. So definitely check it out. Also, check out your own educational methodology and do your own research and find out a little bit more about Brixton Metals, because what we say, believe it or not, is not guaranteed, nor is past performance. So please do your due diligence and get after your homework, and best of luck with BBB on the venture exchange. It is kind of fun to say. And we'll see you all on the very next Equity Guru Investor Roundtable.